Haere mai from my Heart Place, Donna, to your Heart Place, to Heart Place Hospital podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. So exciting to be here.
Yeah, so exciting for many reasons. The way I love to start is how you and I met. So it was August 2021 and we were all in lockdown. And someone sent me your stuff article. And I was like, I need to find this lady. And so we connected. And, we connected like we are now on Zoom. And I think it was quite a long conversation. And we also noticed that we both had the Moldavite ring. So instant connection for many reasons. And I also try and pull a card too before I do a podcast. So I pulled wisdom, which I think is so cool because we're going to I know that we're going to talk about our pain to purpose stories or our mess to messengers, and that's what I believe it is. It's creating the wisdom. We're the wisdom keepers. And then I pulled one of my favorite cards, Lady Guadalupe, who's the Empress of Protection. I am safe and divinely protected. I am held in love at all times. And I thought, that when we're going to talk about some sensitive subjects.
I'll take that.
So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to introduce you to our listeners. So this is Donna Davis, and Donna Davis is an author.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk more about that. So Donna is the author of Not Fine. And I don't have my book because I've just lent it to my cousin who was a police officer for 15 years in Perth. So I've just given it to him. So I don't have one to hold up. So
and I'm the same. I literally have sent all of mine out waiting for the next shipment to arrive. So that's not very good of us, is it?
Maybe we'll edit one and we'll get producer Sean.
Yeah.
But there's lots of synchronicities but I think what's really beautiful is that there's a real lots of synchronicities, but my story is part of your story and is actually in your story, like physically.
You are forever a part of my story.
I know, right? I always say that to people. I'm a bit like Velcro. You never can get rid of me.
I love it.
Yeah. So this is Donna Davis. She's an author, and the reason she is an author is because she has shared with the world, and I believe saving lives. Even though she's not in that traditional frontline role, she's still saving lives through sharing her story, as well as a podcast, which is called Blurred Lines. And I'm typical of me. I've listened to number 5, number 1, and number 2. So I've got number 3 and 4 to go. I never do anything in order.
No.
And what there's heaps to talk about. But what I actually really is coming to front of mind is how big your story is and how much I've witnessed you alchemize it into that pain to purpose, and the purpose being sharing that story, sharing that vulnerability that neither you or I had. It wasn't from the era where you didn't air your dirty laundry. You just cracked on. And it was interesting because once again, I read your story and then I skipped all the other stories and I read my story and I was like, oh, that's weird. But then when I've read it now in order, it totally makes sense. So you've done a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful job of that. I just love that. And I love how you've weaved in all your learnings along the way. But my absolute favorite chapter is actually the last chapter.
That's interesting. Well, that's the journey to healing chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. And it's just all about self-love. It's all about inner standing. So as opposed to understanding, inner standing.
Yes.
It's the reason. It's the reason you and I got connected. It's the reason this story is going to really it's going to really earth shake. It's going to be a change maker and a chain breaker. And that's who you are, Donna. You're that. But I guess over to you. I'd love for you because I now know your story so in depth.
Yeah, you do. I wish I had a notepad while you were talking because I'm like, oh yeah, oh that, because it's you're the first person to read it in full. Like people have the books, but the first one to read it and give me that feedback, which is awesome because I have looked at it so many times. It's taken 2.5 years to do, and you start losing the objectiveness of it. Like I just read it and I read it and I read it, but I don't get to see it from other people's points of view. So you pick out the things that you've talked about are things like, I'm like, yeah, no, it does do that. Like, because I haven't kind of thought of it in that way. I love that reference to understanding versus what did you
Understanding.
say it was?
Yeah.
Understanding.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard of that understanding phrase before, and it actually is exactly what it is, because we are surrounded in a world of drink this, do this, eat this, it'll make you feel better. We are bombarded in social media and by advertising about things that make us feel better. And I guess part of my journey, I've been able to unpack what got me to the place that I'm in. And every step of the way, I had to kind of timeline my entire life, all the decisions, all the feelings, all good, bad, and ugly, why I ended up where I did. And that was massive. I think everyone should do that. Yeah, it's not nice to do. I mean, it was ugly, but so valuable to understand how I feel the way I do, how my brain works, and then how to look for the solutions that I can manage myself when it suits me, not take another vitamin to make myself try and feel better, not to use escapism. So that was, massive to, and I'm actually really thrilled that you picked that up in the book, because that's exactly what it's about. You have to look inwards before you can do the outwards. For me, that's how I looked at it. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
And like, as I was reading it, I was like messaging you going with emojis, like, and I really wanted to go like just read it all in once. Like I didn't want to go to sleep. I really wanted, but it's pretty
Confronting?
it's pretty everything. And I
Yeah.
like the listeners have heard me prattle on about my story a lot, and I know now I put very little meaning into my story. It's everything makes sense now. So for me, it was I had a health journey as a child, and then I went into healthcare. So I had the health journey, and then I went into healthcare to face it front on, and now I've read your whole story, and I'm assuming you've got this feeling now. Make it looking at everything makes sense. So you had an
Yeah.
experience as a younger person, which which really defined you, and then you went into the place and was face fronting to it all.
Mm.
And what I'm seeing of you now, what I'm witnessing of you is now it's refining you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And without going through that book process, I wouldn't have got to that point, because we don't want to go back to those horrible things. And I think I find it really fascinating, that connection, like you, between something that happened that triggered a need in us to want to be carers. And a lot of the people in caring roles are exactly the same. That's what gives us the heart to do it. We just don't understand why. We just like, yep, I have to go and help. And we don't understand the effects that it has, or just incredible. That was the whole reason for the book, was because it's like, well, actually it's not complicated. It's not rocket science. Like, it's just simple neurology, physiology, it's all the ologies, you know, and but I wanted to put it in a way that people could make sense of it and relate to it, regardless of role, gender, you know, demographic. It's just the same for everyone. We're all human. So learning the science behind our Stone Age brains really, really helped me on my journey. And I think it kind of made that clarity of actually we, you know, and you and I have both read the book, Jehan Casinader's book of This Is Not How It Ends, because it's something that I've held on to the whole time writing the book is actually I can't change the past, but I can change where I am now. You know, I can change what my future looks like. I don't have to be defined by or controlled by the things that I've done in the past, whether they're good or not. I accept that they happened. Writing the book, to be honest, I wanted it to be all about you and the other people in the book. That was I didn't want to put my story in the book, not in as much detail. I wanted to kind of forget the first 20 years of my life and just do the rest, because to me that was what the book was about. And the publisher, it got to kind of 18-odd months in, and she's like, no, the book is about you and your journey. People want to know about your journey. And I was like, oh, and like I sat on it for about 6 weeks. I was like, oh, I just don't want to do it. And we all kind of think like, what do we have that people would want to hear about? Like, you know, when I first started it, I was like, well, how am I going to fill a whole book? Like, that was actually easy. I just kind of kept thinking like, my life is pretty boring. Like, what would be interesting?
Oh my goodness. It was not a boring book.
It was not a boring book.
It was not a
Yeah, so it took a long time because I had to put things in writing that, you know, potentially anyone in the world could read, that I had never said out loud or that I'd never told my family. And, you know, I don't want to hurt people or upset people, but without putting that down, the story didn't make sense. Like, there wasn't the context. And in the end, it actually ended up being one of my favorite parts of the book, not only because it clicked all the pieces in my brain of, oh, I could actually see it in a list of, you know, and it just all made sense. And then I thought, well, you know, then came that kind of healing process of, well, I've got nothing to be ashamed of. Like, it's fine. But, you know, with mental health, there is so much judgment. And I kind of had to get myself past that. Like, actually, you think what you like, you know, you have the right to be wrong about me. But I know that I'm a good person and that there's nothing wrong with me, and that by showing these parts of my life, it will give my family potentially some understanding. But it's also, I think, I'm hoping that others will do the same, that they'll look back in the past instead of just sitting in the present and go, oh, my life is miserable, you know, and it's so easy to sit in that pity, that they might go, oh, I never would have thought that an event from way back could have affected me now. It could, you know, and it doesn't have to be any kind of form of abuse even. It could just be a family death. It can be, you know, like in your case, it can be a surgery, it can be a health thing, and we just would never have related it to that situation we end up years later. So I really hope that people get that from the book, and as painful as it might be, reflect to move forward. Yeah.
Also, I think what I certainly got from the book and what I share with others through Heart Place Hospital is when we're in those crunchy moments, when we're in uncomfortable moments, when you know the shit is literally hitting the fan, get curious, oh, I wonder what the reason of this opportunity of learning is, you know, as crunchy and as shitty as it is, like what manure is going to come out of this.
Mm.
And I know that I do this, and I know that you do this, that you advocate for young people and give them opportunities of this learning, because it certainly didn't come up in our era or our parents' era. So, and through our own healing journeys, we've deep dived into self-development and
Mm,
understand, celebrating our body and mind. And now we can be that light at the top of the lighthouse for others. So I know for you,
mm.
you talk to schools and you talk to schools about boundary, consent, sovereignty, body autonomy, all
Yeah.
those things that you and I didn't get from our era. But
Mm.
when it landed into our laps and we became accidental advocates,
Oh, I like
well,
that.
like it or not,
Yeah, yeah,
um, we're able to be that beacon of light, that
yeah,
generation, all those around us.
yeah.
Yeah. And the other one thing I just wanted to say with that is, with your book, say if it is more of an adult reading the book, but they are raising the next
Mm,
generation, or they're interacting with other people, then they're going to have that code within them to be able to ripple effect off. It might not be, I
yes.
got this from the book, but it will
Yep.
be a code that your writing has actually really embodied into somebody.
Yeah, very much. And even with my own kids, like, oh, jump back. So, boundaries and resilience is something that we are not born with. And if we are not taught it, then how do we know how to do that for ourselves or our children? And so that's something that I've really had to learn about. And most of these things I've only learned in the last kind of 5 years, and I'm 45. you know, so for 40 years I'm floundering around, um, having no idea, making it up, making mistakes. And there are so many things that I think that you would have read in the book where I think, now if I had learned boundaries and what resilience was when I was a child, because they don't have to be an adult theme, um, I potentially wouldn't have ended up in the situations that I did. I really believe that. And, there's so many things that come around that are fashionable, and resilience in a professional landscape was very trendy for a while there. It was
Actually,
resilience was
it
thrown
actually,
around.
it triggers me, the word resilience. Like,
Oh, yeah, there are words that really just I don't like, because not because I don't like the purpose of them. It's because they are just thrown around like it's it's easy. It's a tagline, and it's actually I still, even doing thing training in a professional environment. No one ever told me still what resilience actually was or how to get it. Um, and the small things, the big things, the getting up, and it's as simple as, put it into English, just like you get knocked down, you get back up. Resilience. um, it's boundaries. It's, if our kids don't want to go and hug someone, we don't make them. We're brought up in an environment and families where we hug our aunties and uncles and we hug our grandparents, and that's fine. Like, we have those kind of cultures and traditions, but if they're not comfortable, it's understanding and sensing that and going, well, actually, no, you don't have to hug them. We don't have to do those things. So it's being aware of, and I'm proud that I can pick those things up for my younger children that I didn't know myself. And I think, good, tick, tick, I've got that.
break up kids.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little bit more emotional connection, I guess. It's breaking the cycles,
Yeah.
very much. Yeah. So on a personal level, like, even without the professional level of what this book will do on a personal level, yeah, it's been massive. And the things that I've learned, and so professionally, I think that's going to be a little trickier.
I,
Got to
I,
get into those professions and go,
uh,
here, you need this.
yeah. Well, I said to you, because I came to your book launch last week, and which was beautiful. And I said to you at the end, I said, "Oh, you think you've just written a book and you've done a podcast, but you wait. You just
Yes, right.
especially when this generator comes on board, I'll be your hype girl." And
Need one of those.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think there's a challenge with organisations, particularly those frontline ones where they're seen as kind of that staunch environment, is that it is such a massive organisational public risk to put their hands up and say, actually, we haven't done a great job of looking after our staff and our people. But we're going to make it okay. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. I think it is definitely in the little too hard basket for them. And it's only so, if I make some progress on that level, that would be incredible. If not, on an individual level, connecting with people and getting that information out there that's goal.
beautiful. I love it. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, there's so many times where I would have loved to have heard something along the, compassion. So something that this must be really tough for you, or I can see this is really tough for you, or thank you for sharing this with us. It's really important we hear this, or but often it was pretty. I actually pretty much looking back, everything was covered up.
Mm.
And I know for me, for the first 2 decades of nursing, I thought there's something wrong, bad, and broken with me. And I did what you did. I went community, I went part-time, I went hospital, I went to corporate, and it kept following me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very sticky piece of Velcro, that one.
Yeah. And that's when
um,
I talk about taps on the shoulder, 4x4 in the back of the head, and then the mat truck. So I know you
mm.
your mat truck. And I just wonder if you can share with us what was it that supported you to get back from surviving to thriving?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, Jackie. Okay, it wasn't therapy. I had this discussion with somebody recently. Not that I'm against therapy, but I had bad experiences with therapy. So for me, I was trying to fix myself, which I think it just took a lot longer, probably. So what brought me back? I would say if I didn't have the support of my husband, that would have been one of my biggest challenges, because I found that family and friends didn't understand. And it was really hard to explain when I didn't even understand myself. So how could they understand? And yeah, that was really hard. And because Brendan was in the police as well, it was that little bit easier for him to understand. And even now he says, he doesn't understand my brain or a lot of the things that I've talked about and anything, but he doesn't need to. He just needs to accept. And so accepting that that's my reality was massive, because that gave me then the confidence in myself to go, well, actually, there's nothing wrong with me. And to be honest, probably where I learned the most was old Dr. Google.
Nice.
I Googled the Googleness out of it. I think for the first couple of years, I was just trying the avoidance, get as busy as I can and just ignore it. And I guess it works until something tips that balance a little bit, and then it doesn't work. It's been such a gradual process. I mean, I left the police in 2017, and it's really only been towards the end of this book journey, what are we now, 2024, it's taken that long, just to try different things, different approaches, different supports.
Do you know what
And
I'm witnessing is it's been your innate wisdom that has got you through. It's been the book
yep,
and being vulnerable. Brené Brown
yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Um, and then so the book process and I saw how somatic that was for you last week.
mm. Oh,
And
me
that
just crying for like an hour.
a massive release, and
Massive.
but also what I'm witnessing as well is Brendan being in his masculine and you being in your feminine.
Yes,
So
yes,
he's standing like a Poe and allowing you to be mad, bad, sad, or glad. And then
absolutely.
you were standing in your feminine and you were allowing all the mad, bad, sad, and glad, whether it was,
Yep,
all at once or
yep,
a little. And also, I heard another word that you said was parts of me.
yep.
There's a beautiful therapy around parts practice, and so often when we are medicalized, we kind of
Mm,
medicalized, oh, you've got this. But yes, I may have that, but it's a part of me. I also have this
yes.
part of me that shines. I also have a part of me that cries, and I have a part of me that hurts, and there's a part of me that finds
Mm,
joy. So I, I, and that's what really, really, really motivated me to create Heart Place Hospital is because
mm,
we don't have a society that allows us to show up in any which way we are in any given moment. And I know for me, and I know for you, it was really freaking challenging to ask for help. 80 to 90% of frontliners don't access support because of stigma. That was me.
mm,
That was me. I
yep.
wanted to avoid it at all cost, but I couldn't access my coping mechanisms that had helped me survive for all those years. So
Mm,
I had to step in the brave and I had to get it.
yep.
And like you, mine wasn't mine wasn't a great fit.
Mm,
And so I had to literally crawl. It was interesting. I was talking to Sarah, who was at the launch last week, and she goes,
yep.
looking at you, I can't believe it. Like, because I tell people I was
Mm,
agoraphobic, claustrophobic, anorexic. I was panic attacks and I was anxiety. And so, and now like I'm a moving rainbow.
yes. Did you like that?
You'll have to read the book to understand that, but
Jackie is a moving rainbow.
and so it's literally one of those sayings like, if I can do it, you can do it. Like if I come
Yes.
from that far down in the
Yep.
ground, um, and it's funny now. It is funny. It really is funny because like I see people now in these spirals. And I'm like, get to your edge, get to your edge, go to your edge because once you're at the edge, there's an opportunity for you to turn around and come back up again.
Mm,
And there's so many of us, your book, your podcast, your vulnerability, your website, showing up like you are and like I am and like so many others are, when we just never saw that witnessed.
no.
Yeah, and there's so much study. So there's a international study for nurses where relevant, only 2% of the nurses' story is shared in news and media. So if I can't find other people's stories, so 8 years ago I couldn't find any
Mm,
other, like I thought I was going crazy, but there
mm,
was no other story for me to kind
mm,
of go, wow. And so then when we connected 3 years ago, I was like, oh yay.
mm. Yeah, well, when I did that article for staff, I held my breath for a little bit because I knew it was going to, I didn't worry so much about strangers judging me. I worried about the people that I knew judging me and the people I worked with. And I was like holding my breath. And then I was inundated with messages and I had not one negative message. People that I kind of knew and then I really knew, like everyone went, wow, we had no idea, because you can't look at someone and say, oh, you've got trauma, or you've got this, or you've got that. And we get really good at hiding it. And so to have so much positivity I kind of went, oh, okay, well, it's not just me. It validated what I was thinking. But the amount of messages I got that said, this is me. I had no idea, but this is my life. I read your story, and this is exactly my life. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I thought I was the only one. And it's those messages that you probably find the same with those that come to the hospital. Um, that makes you kind of take that next step. That's why you keep going. And it's like, well, it's another way of us caring, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I just have that compassion for them, that empathy, thinking, well, I know what it's like. I don't want you to suffer if you don't have to any longer than you need to. Um, and yeah, there's no bias in that book either. There is no discrimination. Mental health doesn't discriminate. Saints and sinners all welcome.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it really just made me realize how big the issue is. Yeah.
yeah.
And this was a way of getting to kind of a bigger audience.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm,
I would say our environments and our experiences manifest our mental and physical reality. So,
mm,
and because I have the inner standing of myself, I find that I have the inner standing of others. So
mm,
when I do see inappropriate behavior or what we understand as bad behavior or even manifestation within our physical body, I'm like, it's you can just see it straight away, like, wonder what their trauma is.
mm. Yeah, yeah. You see it more in behaviors than looks.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I had someone that I told you the story, that had known me for a year, and then when I told her about my trauma, she's like, "Oh, I would never have known that. I would never have guessed that of you." And I was like, "Oh," and I was kind of complimented, but
You know what? It was really interesting because I hadn't read your book, and
yeah,
I knew that there was trauma there because it had manifested into what society calls burnout,
yeah,
uh, and I'd already guessed, I already knew
yeah.
what it was going to be. I was like, oh
You're special.
yeah,
It was. Oh, I don't know. I just it's such a way to connect with people. So Sarah that you mentioned, who came to the book launch, she's in the book. We'd never met until the book launch in person, and it was so special because we had literally gone through a journey together without even meeting. 2 phone calls and the rest were emails, and I've seen her journey, and I was just like a proud mum, really. But being able to see the journeys of others go from being in a very trauma focused place to writing their stories with me, to now they are completely different people. And I think even they are surprised. So there was one in the book, who he'd never shared with his family the things that he shared with me, and he put them in the book. And there's very much a difference between when I first spoke to him and what kind of transpired, and where he is now is just phenomenal. So and nothing else kind of changed in their life. They didn't suddenly get rid of their trauma. It's still there, but just simply by sharing, um, and the knowledge that it can help others, healed them in so many ways. And Grant and Marie, that in the book, you remember Grant? Yeah, the most heartbreaking. Yeah, like, don't get me started. Unbelievable heroes, those two, um, and for them, it was very much a way to get some closure by sharing their experiences in the book. So to be a part of that in someone's life was just magic. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Something else that really jumped out at me a lot was like you use the term vicarious trauma, and that one person might have this experience and another person might not. And I know for Marie, like she felt like because she was the stepmom, like she didn't get as much
Mm,
witnessing and support. I probably haven't worded that quite right, but you know what I mean. And
yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is so good. You know, it's so important that people can see that even though we're humans, that there's just different parts of us. There's different, we're made up of different, you know, like before there was them as a couple, they were
Mm,
individuals and then they came together. And so they're going to have different experiences because they've had
mm,
different upbringings and different genetics and
yeah.
racial wounds and so on. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was stoked to have the two couples in the book. So there is, there's references to partners and wives and husbands and things where it's kind of one person's story, but then they bring in what effect it had on their families going through the trauma. But then there's, the two chapters where we've got two couples that actually give both of their sides, and I love that because it's so balanced, and because Grant and Marie were both in the police, both shared their experiences with trauma in the job, trauma in their own lives. And then we've got the other couple who he was in the police and she wasn't. So to get a perspective of a spouse who's not in the job and looking at it from the outside of this is what his profession did to him and how it changed him was just incredible. To see what happened to their relationship over all of those years. Um, and I just want it to be thought provoking, not just from a, oh, that is just so tragic kind of point of view. I didn't want it to all be a negative doom and gloom, point fingers book. Everyone in that book said they were so proud of their job. There was no negativity towards the organisations that kind of put them there, which I think is really lovely. But where was I going with that, Jackie? um, yeah, I don't know. I didn't want it to be just a sad horror book. It was about understanding hope, growth,
mm,
progress.
huge humanity, huge.
Yeah, the realization that simply by talking, you can heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's self-healers is what I sort of call it.
Yeah. Oh, self-healing, I think, is massive. Like understanding the heart, brain, head, brain, gut, brain, get that. If that gut brain says to you, that doesn't feel good, don't do it. If it feels like that's not right, like, yeah, yeah.
And you even kind of alluded to it yourself when I asked that question about how you've gone from surviving to thriving, and you know you haven't gone and spent thousands of dollars and gone to all these courses and all these
No,
sessions. You've alchemized that beautifully with writing the story, with writing the book, with connecting with community,
yep.
um, and
Research.
yeah, and that's what I felt was missing from my healing journey, and that's why I accidentally created Heart Place Hospital very proudly, and same with me. I was super proud of being a nurse, and when I stepped away, it's only just about 3 years ago that I stepped away from bedside nursing for the last time, but I and all my guests have had the same conversation. So even though we're not in these traditional roles, because we know that those systems don't serve us long term, we're still able to be the carers that we were always designed to be. So
Yeah, it's still caring, and I think it's almost even more powerful because we get to create it ourselves from our own experience. We didn't just go and do a certificate or a degree and go, well, actually, I'm this now. I think a learned experience um, is even more valuable than just something I could read in a book.
inherited, I call it.
Yeah, yeah,
I inherited this degree.
yeah, that's right. I wish I could get a certificate that says, inherited degree because yeah. Anywho,
I know.
yeah, I think that there is so much focus on the traditional as well, the traditional healing. And I think it's about keep going until you find something that fits. You know, I'm not a fully spiritual religious person. It wasn't my upbringing, but I love spirituality. You know, that's something that is just feels right for me. And I love Reiki, and those are my kind of things. But I'm also a perfect consumer. You know, something comes up and says, "Oh, this will make you feel better." I'm like, I want to feel better.
Give me a green
um,
smoothie.
drink. I cannot drink green smoothies. So I take bits of what feels right for me, of traditional and non-traditional, and I just make it work for me. It doesn't have to. You don't have to pick a side.
Well, the other thing is, Donna, that we're continuously evolving. So now that you've
Yeah.
moved through this, once you pop, you can't stop. And it doesn't
Yep.
mean that the curveballs don't keep coming in life. It just
Mm-hmm.
means that, and I love another guest said this, it means that we literally live on these kind of mountains. So we've climbed a mountain and then a curveball comes and we go down the mountain but we've created this endurance or resilience, whatever word works for you, that to climb back up the mountain because
Yep.
the view is super cool at the top. But knowing that that's part of being a human being, is that our
Mm,
experience here is to evolve, and
mm,
we're designed to be pilgrims, movers, shakers, move and groovers. But a lot of that the eras that we've been through for a long time in the patriarchal eras where we were we were conditioned not to feel, not to reveal, and not to deal with things, and therefore
mm,
feel um, didn't hasn't served us any longer now that we've got this massive amount of population on this earth, and
mm,
have we don't have the health and education system to sustain that model, and so
mm,
a lot of us are here on this earth right now being, like I said, accidental advocates with the imperative degree of Earth School, so that we can shine the light, so that
mm,
we can show others that we are self-healers and that
mm,
we're part of nature, that connecting with nature, connecting with community, connecting with our breath is how we can create a simple and sustainable
mm.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And there is so much intergenerational trauma because of those historic, archaic, don't reveal, don't feel kind of beliefs, that they don't serve anybody. And so the intergenerational trauma was something I had no idea about until I started this journey, and how trauma sits in the body, how we pass it on to the next generation, how everything we do affects how our kids then grow up and behave, and yeah, which is incredible. We just don't get taught those things.
And I mean, if that's really weird for people to understand, this
Mm,
is this is science. So our egg, that is us, was inside our mother when she was inside her mother.
mm,
So whether you're a male or female now, we were all at one point in time, part of us was inside our grandmother. And for our generation, our grandmothers were wartime brides.
mm,
So they were going through depression, the depression, and through wars.
mm.
So we are carrying that. But the beautiful thing is, because I don't want to leave it
No,
as
it's not a
a
bad thing. I think it's just,
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
just something to understand. Like, I find
And
it fascinating.
oh, so fascinating. And the more and more and more, and you're a Dr. Google researcher, and I do a lot of reading and connecting. And we can do this ourselves, but we can also be guided or douled or stewarded through actually
Mm.
collecting that intergenerational trauma. And the beautiful thing is that what comes through is intergenerational wisdom.
Yay!
Uh,
Yes, that's
um,
just it. Like, when you see those changes that you've made to break that link from our generation to the next, like, that's a great feeling.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And like I work with lots of people and they're like, I don't know how I know this, but I have this knowing. And what I say, like with Heart Place Hospital, is we're supporting people to heal their boundary wounds. So
Mm.
I've been through a massive journey of healing our boundary wounds, and like I said, once you pop, you can't stop. So there'll be more to come. Don't worry, we're like onions. And then it's also how to advocate for ourselves and others. And
Yep.
so you've shared how that was really challenging. You were like, oh, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be shamed, I'm going to be talked about. And me too, I've been through that too. And that actually did happen for me, that all those things
Mm,
happen. And I had to learn to really stand in my power, in my inner standing, like a Poe, and really embrace my parts, because I've got parts of me that I'm just like, oh my God, that is such a dumb part. But I've had to embrace it because it's all part of who I am.
yep.
And so yeah, so learning to advocate for yourself. And when I say advocate for myself, something like my children will say, man, no, no, no. I'm like, oh my God, you're so right. What a dick. So really owning the silly parts. So rather than
Yep.
always trying to look like you're perfect or whatever it is. Actually, I know so often
Mm,
I just own it. I just go, yeah, you know what, you're right. And I had someone witness me today and they said, oh, I notice you say this all the time. I'm like, oh my God, I do. Thank you so much.
yeah.
So really advocating for yourself and others. So
Mm,
your mum, you're a community, you're in society. So it's really important that we are advocating for others. And for you and I, it's people who are in caring roles. We care for carers.
mm, mm.
We're now the bridges. We've been where we haven't been cared for, and now we won't actually tolerate not being cared for. And
Yep.
then finally is crafting a life that best suits you. So I
Yep.
always say to people, someone just made up full time. It's not
Mm,
science. Part time, someone made it up. It ain't true.
yeah.
And I went to the school of hard knocks. I can't do night shifts. I can't do them. They fucked me up. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I went to the school of hard knocks. I can't go and work in places where my moral compass is out of alignment. My body will speak to me. I have
Oh, amen. Yep.
I have
Definitely.
to choose my moral compass over my paycheck.
Me
And that
too.
has been again, school of hard knocks. You know, there's some baked beans sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
I've been told a few times, like, it's so, especially now, and I know every generation has it tough. And I think with the cost of living and all of these things, putting that financial pressure on us to just do jobs for money, we lose what we do because we love it. And I've been told a few times, like, stop focusing on how much you need to earn, focus on doing something from the heart.
I always tell this story when I left, when I had my Mack truck 8 years ago, and I was the main earner. So I was the nurse manager and I was the main earner, and I had two young children, and my husband was starting a business, and it was the first time I'd resigned, not to have a baby or not to go
Yeah.
overseas, not to go to another job. I was resigning without a job, and I was the main earner. And I'm not joking, but the week later, I went to my letterbox and there was a forgotten superannuation of $31,000 in my letterbox, a check for it.
Wow.
The universe always has you, has helped.
Yeah.
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 And what is happening is that our awe-inspiring body is giving us a message. So there is nothing wrong, bad, and broken with us when we burn out, when we spiral, when we get into what I call deep rest. Others might call it
Mm.
depression. I call it deep rest.
Deep rest. Oh, I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's our awe-inspiring body slowing us down to get the message that
Mm.
we're out of alignment. And
Mm.
we're in alignment. We know we are because we're in flow. We're living in abundance. And abundance, we've kind of, I believe, we've been given some fool's gold around what abundance looks like. My garden is in abundance. My veggie garden is in abundance. I'm able
Mm.
to share it with my village. I can put it into the village pantry every week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm abundantly supported in this movement that I'm creating. So we've got to look at what
Mm.
abundance looks like, and also
Yeah.
that's what we've seen at Heart Place Hospital, very circular economy. Like I can share my energy with you and my community, and what do you know? People buy your books.
Energy is infectious. Like, misery loves company, and we can feed into that misery. But energy and happiness is the same. I just find if you go into a room and you are energetic in a positive, energetic way, and smiling and just, I don't know, it's like a breath of fresh air for people because we don't know what everyone's going through. And I just find that positive energy is infectious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And
I know something you said in the book, and I really wanted to share this with you. You said,
uh,
fake it till you make it. Do you know what I say?
oh,
I
yes,
say, faith it until you
yes, yeah. Yeah, fake it till you make it, I think, is just one of those easy to say things that really people don't mean, and it's just dumb. You know, why do we have to fake it? Like, if you're having a crappy day, then just say, I'm having a crappy day. Doesn't mean you have a crappy day every day. You know, you just got to kind of go, oh, I've got a crappy day, but I won't be crappy later. I'll be better tomorrow. Like, it's you got to sometimes make those really conscious choices.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just sit here going, you know, gratefulness is one of my other kind of pet peeve words. And I know that people love, you know, let's do these self-affirmations and gratefulness and be grateful for the, you know, some days I'm just not grateful. You know, I'm just like, this is shit. Like, what did I do wrong? Because stuff goes wrong. But then it's understanding what that resilience means of going, well, actually, I'm allowed a day of not being grateful. But then the next day, I need to pick myself up and go, well, you know, I don't like to say, oh, well, there are other people that have got it worse. Yeah, but there's other people that have got it better.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just it's just about going, well, you know, reframing gratefulness for me. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
take that meaning and just reframe it to how best suits. Yeah.
Yeah, I think linguistics are really super important. They're a
Yeah.
frequency and energy. And I invited someone this morning. They said suffering from something, and I said, "Oh, could I invite you to change that to
Yep.
experiencing this?" So
Yes.
yeah, so I think linguistics
Yeah.
is super important, and I think
Absolutely.
that's something really easily that we could implement into our education system, and yeah, I mean that's an area, Heart Place Hospital, we support those in the front line of education and health and
Mm.
services. So
Absolutely. I think it's like we get given a word by who knows who, and we just accept that that's the word to use. Like, I've worked in victim focused roles now for many, many years. I detest being called a victim.
mm,
And I don't actually like being called a survivor. I'm
I
nothing. I'm
agree.
a person. I'm
Yeah.
not a label. I'm,
I'd call you a wisdom keeper. That's what I'd call you.
oh, thanks. I'll take that label. You know, like we just, because it's very defining,
Mm,
isn't it? And it's like, I'm not defined. I don't want to be defined as a victim. I don't want to be defined as a survivor. I'm just Donna. I'm just a person. I'm a mum. I'm a this, you know, like I'm lots of things. Um, so yeah, I
I
absolutely,
think you're a ray of sunshine, Donna. That's something.
shucks. And you're
Yeah.
my rainbow. Um, yeah, I think, like you say, it's so important that, and it's tiny little words
Mm,
like experiencing instead of suffering. You know, it is. It's an experience. It's suffering has such negative connotations to it. So it's like, oh, poor me, kind of suffering. But it's like, but experience. The word experiencing to me is about being powerful. It's like I experienced something, and it's like embracing something.
isn't it? It's very expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can
Exactly.
change how people feel by changing words.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's a frequency thing. And that's like when people use expletives and they're like, oh, like this. I'm like, you know what? It's a frequency. Get it out. It's a great way to get out that energy that's not serving
yeah,
you. So go for
yeah.
it.
Just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
just let it
this has been amazing because you and I could do like a whole series
out.
together.
Uh-huh. We can literally talk for hours.
Oh, we so could. We so could. But how I love to end these is like what's coming up in your heart place? Like what's something that you can share with um, the listeners that you would love to implement or that you are implementing? And then also, how can people buy your book? Where can they?
Shameless plug, Jackie.
Yeah.
Um,
Unapologetic.
Sorry?
Unapologetic.
Unapologetic. Love it. I don't know, you'll get this. It's so hard to contain that entire book and the learnings from it into a few words. Do you find like it's like your work is so, it's like, spidery. It's got so many parts to it. It's really hard to kind of think of one thing. It's like, what do I want people to know? I want people just to know to accept, not understand. I think it's massive. I don't need to understand something that you've been through to accept that it's your experience. And I think that is massive. It would make massive steps forward in our world of stigma and judgment. It's like, it's that whole, if you went there at that exact moment in time when that exact thing happened to me, there's no way you could ever understand it. We shouldn't try to understand what someone has been through. And it's really quick for us to jump in and judge because of it or give them advice. It's like, what are you giving advice on something you don't understand? So just accept and just, instead of us jumping in and trying to fix everyone's problems, just accept and how can I support you? That would probably be my,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how can people find you? And
Oh, find me.
yeah,
Look for the sunshine.
you're a light worker, so that's what you tell.
Look for the light. Go to the light. So what I did was I created Kia Maya, which stands for being bold, be brave, be capable. And I wanted something that kind of encompassed all of those things for me. So Kia Maya is on Facebook and Instagram, but also I have my lovely website set up. So kiamayanz.com, and the book is on there, along with some other, beautiful prints and things. There's some blogs, there's podcasts, But failing that, just talk to Jackie. She can talk to her people, talk to my people. But if you can show it some love, that would be incredible, because obviously you will know as well, like it's really difficult to get the word out there when you're starting from literally scratch and getting those algorithms and getting in front of the right people. It's almost a full-time job just to try and get the message out there. So
Definitely. Well, I'm your biggest hype girl. I've got my biggest pom-poms out for you. And thank you so much for being on the Heart Place Hospital podcast.
My pleasure. I probably, if I look back now, I wouldn't have stopped smiling, because that's that infectious energy that you have. Like my mouth is hurting from smiling so much.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want more of that in the world.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So thank you. You're amazing.
Back at you. Kia Maya to you.
Oh, thanks.